also, I think one mistake that some of the brands might do is that they will create a lot of different line items that would dilute the brand and hurt the brand. I think a lot of times businesses try to achieve rapid growth through performance marketing. And yes, to be honest, if you want rapid growth, this is a tool, but it isn't really a magic pill. I would usually think it's best we use it as a guideline, as a reference, but at the end of the day, always trust our intuition.
Are all promotions the same? Like 667, we have it every month.
Yep.
Is there like one that is like specifically better than the others?
Of course.
Hey everyone, welcome to the A to Z podcast where we turn real talks into real change. I'm your host Elton, and today we have Braden Tan. All right, so Braden's a marketing lead at Prism Plus and also former performance marketing lead at Lazada. So it's a very interesting portfolio what he has, and today we're going to discuss marketing and branding in today's digital landscape. So yeah, Braden, introduce a bit about yourself. What do you do, and how do you get into marketing?
Okay, I think you did a very good introduction just now. Couldn't do it better myself. And just to share a bit of story how I got into digital marketing, it's actually a little bit of an accident. So around 8 years plus ago, I was working at my hometown for a small family business. So we were the distributor for Coca-Cola. And at that point, I was trying to figure out, because we were selling to retailers, then retailers to the consumer, I was trying out if we can go directly to the consumer, because there's this internet thing came about, right? And I listed up a post on Facebook with Chinese caption of all the Coca-Cola products, I think up to 10 SKUs. And I wanted to reach it to more people. So I pressed the boost button. I'm sure a lot of people press that. And after that, I saw my ad being shown to a lot of foreign workers, because more is like a small furniture hub, right? There's a lot of foreign workers. And they were engaging in my ad. And I was like, why am I wasting all my money showing my ad to people who don't understand Mandarin? So I eventually went down the paid ads rabbit hole and slowly uncovering with sheer will and passion, learn about website, domain hosting, learn about social media, learn about tagging analytics and all. Then actually eventually I got an opportunity at Dentsu, and that's where I started my digital marketing journey. Yeah.
Wow, okay. So you started with just the press of a boost button, but I think going back even further, may I just know what did you study in university, or what was your major?
Okay, I'm actually a college dropout. Yeah, I dropped out of uni. So I was studying business management and accounting and finance at UK, and as I was learning through the course, right, I was like, I learned about Henry Ford, Taylorism by Patrick Taylor, and the assembly line, and I was like, how do I apply all this practice into work? Because before going to UK, I did a gap year working for my dad, and after learning, I felt like it wasn't really applicable at that time. That time I couldn't understand the importance of it. But now as I get more mature in business, then I realized that those things actually apply on probably a bigger scale, probably not on a small family business. And I dropped out and I came back working for them after 2.5 years. That's how I started my digital marketing career.
Okay. Since you say you are a college dropout, I really want to ask this. Has it been hard, applying for jobs, or, making that transition to working without this college degree?
Yes, I do believe at some level, yes, but thank God I'm in marketing. No, just joking. But I think if you're not doing something that requires very specific knowledge, for example, being a doctor, being a biochemist, all these that require very high technical skills, wouldn't be as important compared to, for example, just a marketing degree. And to be honest, I think what employers really like right now, even for me, let's say I'm hiring an intern, I'm hiring someone, right, really look at the experience and what they do on their free time. Because you could get a degree, even for Harvard, but if you don't require the real life working expertise, right, it will be very hard for you to grow career wise. Yeah.
Right. Sorry, I just had to sidetrack. That's a really interesting part, which I actually didn't know about until today. So I think next thing is about, you talk about marketing.
Yeah.
All right. And I think you said that it's pretty low barrier to entry. And marketing actually encompasses a lot of things like social media. I think something you mentioned, paid ads. There's so many things. And I think that the common joke around our marketing community is they tend to hire one person to do everything.
Yeah.
Right. So what are the different avenues that you explored, and how should you actually tackle them? What should you look into first? Is it social media?
I think at the end of the day, it really goes back to your own skill set and also your interest in. So, for example, for paid ads, right, performance marketing, we are very, very data driven, and we make decisions most of the time purely out of data that we have compiled, and we tend not to use too much emotion when it comes to it, because performance marketing is like investment banker, so we are media buyers. So we want to maximize our ROI through our spend. And for people like me who are more technical, left-brained, logical, we would excel in performance marketing. But if let's say you are someone who's very emotional, who can do really good storytelling, so probably video production, social media would be a very good avenue for you to start. And I think as a great marketer, right, you have to be well-versed in a few domains. For me, it would be paid ads, socials, and CRM, and probably affiliate marketing. But you have to know all the other avenues that plays and how they play within this ecosystem. Because graphic design, like visuals, right? Even podcast creating audio is a skill set which is very valuable. Then you have like KOL influence marketing, where you're really good at spotting brand collaboration between brands and key opinion leaders. Then those would be the avenue that you would excel in. So you have to know a little bit of everything, but very strong in a few domains. So it's actually called a T-shaped marketer in that sense, yeah.
All right, so I think one more thing, like Lazada was a interesting part of your journey, and definitely Lazada, we see the visual parts combined with the advertisement. I get bombarded with Lazada ads all the time. And probably it's because of you. But looking back at your time at Lazada, how does it shape your marketing strategies? Like all you mentioned just now, maybe just give us some stories that, what's the stories behind the numbers?
Okay, I think before going down to the numbers, right, I would say my role back at Lazada was mainly on the performance marketing side, where we manage the paid advertising portfolio of both search and display. So my first task, I would say, or project that I managed would be media management. So I would run advertisement for brands, up to 24 brands at one time, and improve their performance in that way. And I got to work with brands from different industries and different categories, and that's how I sort of get a gauge on what would, and find the common thing, sort of like the golden rule that works across all the different industries. So performance marketing, and I think it shaped me as a marketer by allowing me to make really data driven decisions. So I work closely with our BI, our business intelligence, to get all those numbers like, what's our cost per visit, cost per daily active users, cost per installs, cost per add to cart, cost by buyer, and really find what type of products drive the best. I'll give you an example. So one thing we created is called everything low price. So we realized that because we segmentize our audience by 4 different buckets. So for installs, activation, re-engagement, and reactivation. So installs is wanting people to install our app. So targeting people who haven't installed our app yet. Activation would be people who have installed our app but haven't purchase anything yet. So re-engagement will be people who have bought something in the past 30 days and we want them to buy a second time within 30 days. Then the last bucket will be reactivation, which is people who have downloaded our app but haven't bought anything for the past 30 days. So we would attach different voucher strategies. For example, the installs and activation will give them 12 ringgit vouchers. Re-engagement will give them 8 ringgit vouchers because they have bought something already. Then the final one, reactivation, will give them 10 ringgit vouchers. Not 12, not 8, but 10, because they are on this bucket.
Entice them to come back.
Entice them to come back, something like that.
But I think that with all this one, just like you mentioned, there's different industries. Does the same thing apply, or did you mention there's the golden rule that is for individual industries?
I think the golden rule would be really, because if you think about it, right, on a meta ad, what people want to see is actually that sort of like golden formula. Like we want to start it with an interesting hook. Then after that, we want to showcase what's in it for them. Do their life get better with your product? What do they get after buying your product? So the transformation. Then the third would be for us, because we're a platform, right? People are very sensitive when it comes to pricing. So pricing be sensitive as well. Then the final one would be call to action. So we will want to create a certain call to action for people to buy now, shop now. And actually, there's one more thing, which is urgency. So really telling them that this promotion we have is time sensitive, and if you don't get it now, it's gonna be you gotta wait 2 more months, things like that. Yeah.
All right. So I actually think since we're shooting this on the 3rd of June,
Yeah.
6/6 is coming up, and there's a lot of promotions running out. Are all promotions the same? I think that's a question I want to ask. Like 6/6, 7/7, we have it every month.
Yep.
Is there like one that is like specifically better than the others?
Of course. Yeah, so actually this whole double digit thing started from China, and if you know, it's actually from Alibaba.
Okay.
And Taobao, they created a thing called the Guangkunjie, which is like the Singles Day.
Yeah.
So 11/11 is the best time to buy whatever you want. It's going to be the cheapest, and followed by 12/12. Then for Lazada, one thing special is our birthday. So which is on the 27th of March, which is the second cheapest day in the year. Then after that, usually a month, there's 3 main campaigns. So one is the double digit. Then second will be the mid-month sale. Then the third one would be the payday sale. But the double digit usually is the best. Yeah.
So yeah, you guys take note. 11/11, that's the best. Then 27 March, right?
Yep.
Okay. If you like this video and if it brought you any value, do drop a like and subscribe and support the channel so we can bring you more episodes like this. With all this digital marketing, you talk about this, we know what's out there. But let's say we're talking about business, from business point of view. Everyone is trying to get eyeballs out there, right? The ad spend, I'm pretty sure is going up, right? Would you say that now is the right time to maybe consider to pivot towards traditional marketing, where I see a lot LRTs, billboards are coming back into the fray. People are putting things back on physical stuff. Is traditional marketing coming back, or is it just a phase?
I think I've never really, to be honest, considered them as traditional or contemporary. Like right now, some people would say, okay, the digital is the next thing. I think a great marketer look them as distribution channel and look them as a tool that we can use to reach our target audience, and also crafting it with the right perception. So it's just that as marketing evolve, right, all these tools, the quality of it also evolve. For example, some people say TV too expensive right now, no people is using, but actually TV is still very effective when you're doing the more upper funnel awareness campaign. And to be honest, it's never been a really good low funnel campaign, because that medium is meant to be the top level. So for example, Nielsen, if you know, Nielsen is one of the body that help marketers actually measure the performance of the campaign back in the days, actually right now also, and it's the standard in the industry. So what they used to do for TV commercials is that after running a TV commercial, they will run offline surveys towards this household and ask them to do a survey on what they think about the TV commercial.
Oh, okay.
So those kind of sampling still happens right now. And I think, but coming back to your question, I don't think tradition is coming back, but I think they are just different tools that marketers would use to reach their target audience.
So at a different part of the funnel you'll be utilizing. So mainly I would say, I think traditional, I wouldn't say traditional, but physical forms of marketing would be more top of funnel, right? Then as you move down, you become more specific.
I wouldn't necessarily put it that way. I would say physical and online, they go hand in hand, and a good marketer would know how to use both concurrently. And one thing I want to highlight is that something I see will become more prominent as marketing evolve in the next 20, 30 years is community-led marketing. What it means is that, so we have all these channels for people to be aware of us, consider us, convert. Then after that, in order to build loyalty and also program them to become an advocate, right? We really want to create a good brand. Would want to create a community of like-minded people. So for example, you got Harley Davidson, you got Gymshark that organize marathons and things that align with the values and belief of their audience.
I think since you're talking about community-led, now we see a lot of this run clubs or even cross-collaboration between industry. You have shoe companies collaborating with cafes, run clubs to organize this kind of events. I think recently, or even with gyms, is collaboration the way to go when it comes to building this kind of communities? And what are the, let's say, criteria that you need to look when you're looking for this kind of collaboration?
I think the main thing would be whether or not the collaborator or the brand they're interested in collaborating with share the same values and belief. So, for example, a lot of brands, they are the staple, or in the minds of the user, they are good brands. And so they, even when it comes to advertising, they wouldn't want their ad to be shown at a more sensitive placements. So placements basically is where your ad is shown. So for example, if you're a baby brand, you wouldn't want your ad to be shown to YouTube channels that is not kids friendly. Yeah. So like, what's that called? Weapons, prohibited content, this kind of stuff. So really, if you want to collab with another brand, hopefully you want the brand to align with your values and belief. And second, actually, one great thing about collaboration is that both brands get to leverage on each other's community, and they form a bigger community and even more closely knitted community. Yeah.
Like, what do you call that? That is if you're looking at community led where you're physically present. Now we have a lot of brands are doing collaborations on a brand level. So maybe let's say, Miniso and those pop mart things. I'm just thinking of off the board, like I'm not sure. Zeus does a lot of collaborations with, I know, some of their characters also, and with local artists and the kind of things. What about those collaborations? How do you, measure the impact of the community-led marketing?
I think for
because you don't see people coming to these events, it's really top of the line. And how, let's say, how sure are you that the purchase is coming from this initiative rather than the like or love of that particular brand? I'm just curious of this.
Great question. I personally, I don't think there's a way to measure collaboration, because in the instant ROI way of measuring it really stifles innovation, I feel, and they would limit what you can do as a brand. So imagine you're Gymshark and you co-organize a sports marathon or all these sports event, right? It's very hard to measure the straight ROI, but I can tell you it's what makes a brand bond better with their target audience by resembling what they value in a way. Yeah.
Right. So I think we talk a lot about brand in there right now. So what is this branding thing something new? Are people are hopping in more, or is it something that's been there for a long time and only recently people has been spotlighting it? What were your thoughts on that?
Great question. So personally, I mean, starting from performance marketing, right? We don't really look at brand. We just look at numbers and maximize it. But I think brand, it has been around for a long time, but it's getting more and more popularized, especially the positioning theory, where by Jack Tra and Aris, if you haven't read, can read it. And it's because before 1960s, right, we are in a class era in a way that we don't have a lot of stuff. That's why whatever you sell, whatever you manage to get, you can sell, no problem. But in the era of surplus right now, where you have an overwhelming surplus of supply, demand is getting lesser right now. So in order for you to stand out from the crowd, you gotta differentiate yourself. That's how branding comes to play. And rebranding, to be honest, to me is the activities that you do to craft an identity for product or service. So you would want to craft an identity in the mind of the user that you're trying to reach. So for example, actually, most people think from a product category ladder. So, for example, if you think of a smartphone, right, then on your mind, immediately you come out either iPhone, Samsung, these kind of brands. So those are the product category ladder, and brand is basically a hook on that ladder that help for your company in a way. So that's how I look at brand. And that's why coming back, it's because of the surplus era that people are trying to stand out. Is where branding get popularized. Yeah.
And do people confuse branding with marketing? Like people say, "Hey, I'm doing marketing. Hey, I'm doing branding," but actually they're just doing marketing, just posting stuff and everything. Is there a different skill set to actually do a proper branding of a company, or is it something that you can actually just brute force your way? Where I post shit ton of content. And my brand will be out there, and it's called branding. Like, because you talk about occupying the mind space. I've actually seen this one reel where they say if you put out enough content and people see your content every day, then now you occupy that mind space. But it has to be consistent. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think I would actually also, okay, so all these terminologies and categorization, everyone has their own way of structuring it. So for me, I would actually place branding under marketing. So marketing, you have branding, and then you have the technology. And when it comes to branding, it's really about creating a perception. So for example, there's a funny saying that if that thing looks like a duck, quite like a duck, most probably it's a duck.
Yeah.
So you would think it's a duck because of the perception you have from it, right? And imagine you have a friend who's, let's say, very well off. Then he drive a great car, lives in a nice place, happy family, things like that. So all those are different touch points of your perception of him, and that's how you form, or most probably people who are rich have that, right? And I think branding is creating that perception and allowing people to perceive it that way. Yeah.
All right. And how far does a branding go? Because I understand you want to create the perception means you have to fit to something that is common, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. A common perception of like ducks, it quacks, it's a duck. And if we're trying, let's say, to go luxury, there's certain criteria for it to be luxury. What if you are not in that category, but you position yourself that way?
I think,
And sorry, I think one more follow-up is, how do you differentiate yourself? I think now a lot of people talk how to differentiate yourself from the competition. So I think these are the three things that.
I think back to your question, one thing I realized in my career of marketing is that no amount of good marketing would help save a bad product. So I'll give you an example. So my brother actually opened up by Malacca, and so basically we are not a retail experience specialist. So we don't really know how to create the offline experience, the offline menu design, everything about retail. And we came into it with a different footing, and we realized that, okay, even if the marketing is good, right, when people come here, they might try it the first time, but if the product is not really good, they won't come back. So when people say, fake it until you make it, that's true, but you have to be consistent, and you have to have a great product as well. And also, one thing you mentioned just now, which is, if let's say you are not a quote-unquote premium luxurious brand, but you position yourself that way, I think it's gonna bite back, because what you want is to really be that thing. Then, to be honest, it doesn't really feel like work, and it doesn't really feel like you're pretending, because even if you're not straight away luxurious, right? And for example, just as you say, consistently post that way, and I believe if you program your let's say DNA that way, right, eventually people will notice your growth, and people will eventually buy into, okay, your luxury brand. You doesn't have to be straight off luxury premium, but you will want to evolve until you become that way.
Right. Because that comes from the point where you're talking about brand is what you're buying is not exactly the cost of the product, but the story behind, like Rolex, the watch itself is not worth it doesn't cost hundreds of thousands to a million to make, but the watch itself, Rolex, the name is worth that much. So when it comes to, let's say, SMEs or anyone starting off in the product space, I want to create something that I don't want to fight with people on pricing. So how do I go about creating that brand perception?
I think there's two main values that people derive from a product. So you have the utility value, which I think for a business owner also, you always look at things at the cost price.
Yeah.
And you would feel like, am I paying a premium for that thing? So you pay for utility, then you pay for the 情绪价值, what do you call that?
Emotional.
Emotional pricing, something psychological tax in a way.
So you pay for the sense of security, the quality. When you use it, you feel the safety in it, or when you feel the status, you're buying the status. Those things that you stack on top.
So I'll give you an example. So you can go to a very staple business, right? Very straightforward. For example, fixing an aircon. So people may charge you like 80 ringgit, 100 ringgit for just servicing an aircon, but some people would be able to charge for 150 ringgit. But how do they actually give it? One way is to not just sell, because if you're just selling the utility value, anyone can replace you, right? But if you're selling with something with more
emotional value,
in a way, it can come from convenience. It can come from being the go-to person when you need to sort this kind of tasks in a way. And it could be convenience, it could be ease of mind, it could be the trust of expertise that you have Because some aircon servicemen, they might say, okay, you need to change a new aircon. But if for that person, they say, okay, you can use for now 5 years, no problem. You trust in his expertise, and you actually willing to pay more for it. Yeah.
So it's actually all of us, we are paying for that status, that peace of mind, that convenience. I think most of that, or even comfort. All these intangible things.
Yep.
Okay, so that is if you are creating a brand and you want to charge more, these are the things that you actually look into to add value to your customers. At the start, we actually talked about him being at Lazada, and one of the things that we actually discussed previously is that when he was at Lazada, one of his data-driven decisions, actually, I didn't read this out, make sure I don't make it wrong. You made some adjustments and optimizations that got a 21% to 42% uplift in performance. What do you guys do to actually achieve that much of a difference?
I think one thing that we did right was actually we work closely with the platform. So we have direct contact because of our ad spend. We are one of the biggest partners in Malaysia, and we have direct access to the people within Meta. So one thing we realized is that the way we set our campaigns had some issue, and we really optimized the targeting side. Because one thing it was to expand it a little bit is that we were targeting people who are interest-based. So imagine you're Nike. Then in the past, my predecessor would target people who like shoes, things like that. But what I realized is that we allow Meta's AI to find the prospecting audience without putting any interest-based targeting works the best across all the different niches. So meaning the Meta's AI actually knows more about our target audience better than us putting interest-based targeting. And we did that for all the brands, and we saw that uplift. Then actually the second one, so the first one was on the targeting. So the second one would be adjusting our messaging. So communication is very important. So understanding the sort of formula that I broke down just now, having the hook, having the what's in it for them, having the transformation, having the call to action, having the call and the urgency to really drive conversion, which was what created the uplift. Then also one thing we realized very interestingly is that we did a comparison between Under Armour's ad and, if I'm not wrong, Under Armour's ad and New Balance. And what we realized is that creatives, so the visuals that has both the model and the product, would actually drive higher ROAS compared to just showing the product or just showing the model. So I think what people actually want to see is having a person that they can relate to, an actual person wearing or displaying the shoe with them, so that they can have a better visualization of it, and that would drive higher conversion.
And you mentioned that there's different kind of formats of ads also. What format works the best? I think you mentioned visuals. What format works the best? Okay,
so what we realized very interesting was we ran mostly two types of ads. So one is a carousel ad, which you swipe. The other one would be the collection ad, which has a banner showcasing the product at the bottom. So carousel ad itself, initially we had what's it called, a main banner. Then after that, displaying the products for you to swipe. And we realized that by removing the first banner, what people really want to see is just products that they might be interested in. So removing main banner actually drove, I think, 17% lower cost per DAU, cost per daily active user for our app. So cheaper way to get more active users. Then we also realized between those two formats, collection ad, the second one, actually drive, like, if I'm not wrong, 12% more GMV driven, gross merchandise value, compared to carousel ad. So we would actually invest more on collection ad compared to carousel.
But you would still actually run carousel ads also still, right?
Of course, yeah.
Then what's the reasoning in that? Since like the other one actually performs better, why not, I double down on that?
I think it's a good balance between also. So one of the traps I feel most marketers that are too reliant on data is that as you find the best performing, let's say, ad type for a specific objective, right? You would often lean into one, and it really limits your growth, because actually we would want to run both, because we think it's very important to have both the active users and the GMV. So allowing Meta to find a more effective spread within the spend would be a better decision than going fully on GMV. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we actually, it's recommended to let Meta, decide for you because they have all information,
The data,
but you don't have.
Mm.
So what's the role of the human in all this? Actually, I'm curious now.
Very true. It comes back to, so I listened to a podcast before by one of my former boss back when I was at Dentsu. So he gave a very good analogy where before there were autopilots, right? Airplane pilots used to be prominent and very respective job, but after the implementation of autopilot, the role of the pilot changes. You get more pilot right now, but the quality of pilot actually gets diluted. I think the same goes to any job that is being quote unquote substituted by technology. But I think as all these tools, right, and technology, they basically empowers the person. So having if you're a great marketer, you're actually not so afraid of all this technology. You know that they are a tool that you can use to empower yourself if you grow with them. So if you don't grow, if you for example you don't learn about AI, they will replace you. But if you learn about AI, it's gonna empower you so much that you will leave all the competitors behind. Yeah.
So it's really about adapting and making sense of the data and now contextualizing it to different businesses. What are you supposed to look into after the AI has done this work? Okay, so another thing is this: when you talk about so many of these terms and let's say I'm a business or I'm a marketer. Out of all these terms, what are some terms that I actually have to pay more attention to? I think very commonly we hear ROAS, right? The ad spend, and then there's other terms that you use. Can you share which is something that you need to look into more?
I think if you're running an app, right, actually all these metrics depends on what dimension you're looking at. So for example, for Lazada, right, so we are actually an app. So an app, we will look at the few key metrics should be in stores, like for example, activation, re-engagement, and reactivation. Then because we are very reliant on performance marketing, you would want to know how much your return. So ROAS actually plays a big role. Then the other metrics could be cost per DAU, because you want to keep your app active and around the market, because even if there's a lot of people that install your app but not using it often, the stickiness might not be there. That's why they actually rolled out a thing called the gamification. So to increase the stickiness of the app, then we'll look at one very key metric, I think, not just from a app business point of view, which would be the LTV, the lifetime value. So actually the lifetime value, right, really determines how much you will spend on the front end, because a lot of businesses, they might look at a very instant return period or point of view. But if you know that you are getting a lot of lifetime value from a new customer, right, it will make more business sense, a smarter business decision also, to spend a little bit more on the front end to acquire the customer, because the recurring and lifetime value is going to be high.
Right. And with all this data that we have today, we're like hyper-driven data, society now, everything has to be through data. Has it ever hurt, creativity in marketing, or should we still actually rely on intuition and, human psychology, that kind of things?
I think data, what it does very interestingly is it uses the data in the past. So, and if you want it to do a predictive model, right, you can do a good model, but it's not going to do the best model with you. And there's a lot of key factors like human relationship, like you say, creativity, innovation that comes to play that aren't factored in the equation. So I would usually think it's best we use it as a guideline, as a reference, but at the end of the day, always trust our intuition.
How can you actually help creativity with the data side of marketing, and how can the data side of marketing help the creatives be better in their job also?
I think one thing, the reason why a lot of businesses they are afraid to invest on creativity is because it's very uncertain in a way. And to be honest, creative is uncertain, but I think having some of the guidelines in guardrails that could help them expand their creativity is having a few metrics as reference. So for example, for social media, right, we would want to know either some of the key metrics would be the follow counts, the profile visits, the engagement rate, what's the average view time if you're on short form video platforms, and the view time of the content. Then having these give you a good rough idea on what creative or what type of content actually works on that platform. So for example, on short form video platform like TikTok, right? We will want to know which hook, because we do a lot of testing. One of the things that we test would be the hook. Which hook actually drives the highest 3-second view. Then after that, we will want to know what's the video completion rate. Then we want to know what's the view time. Because all these metrics actually vary by video. You can have a 15-second video, it will have a high completion rate, but we would also appreciate a 1-minute video with probably a 80% completion rate, you know what I mean? So the length actually makes sense also. So having all these metrics as reference is good, and that's how it help us decide how to invest on creativity side.
So before we actually end, I have a couple more questions. One is, what are some of the traps that actually business fall into when it comes to marketing and branding?
I think one thing they often a trap they might fall into is they would do the price war thing, which is okay. If your competitor is selling 100 ringgit, you probably sell for 95, and you want to get the sell in. Sales is definitely important in the business. In fact, they are the main driver. But over reliant on price war is not a healthy way to grow. And to be honest, unless you position yourself correctly and able to effectively communicate the value that you provide, you're unable to justify the premium that you're charging for your customer. So what you want to do is actually for them to actually want to pay you that price for the value that you provide. Yeah.
Right. And okay. And what companies or what industries would you see fall into these kind of price war quite frequently?
I think it's mainly FMCG, but there are also a lot of brands that are able to step up from the price one and really creating their own category. So we're always saying, okay, what product category you're in, but actually great brands, they create their own category. For example, you have Nestle's Kit Kat.
Okay.
So they really created a scene where it's relatable and it's always so memorable in a way that, okay, have a break, have a Kit Kat. So no other brands actually are using the sort of like the sing in Mandarin, call it the 场景, while they basically occupy that space in your mind that when you're having a break, you can have a Kit Kat.
Like hungry, have a Snickers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. You're not yourself when
You're hungry.
when you're hungry, right? Hangry.
Hungry, yeah.
And actually, one thing I want to add on is when a brand is so strong, right? They really resembles. Their brand name would actually resembles that specific product category. So, for example, for Malaysia, for Milo, right? What do you think about?
Sports, athletes, that kind of healthy lifestyle kind of thing.
Yeah. So if we're talking about utility level, right? They are actually chocolate drink, and because they're so strong in the mind of user, we would think that Milo actually represents the whole product category. Then we have Maggi for instant noodles. Then we have actually Panadol for paracetamol. So and Gardenia for bread.
And like you call Grab for taxi and
Grab for taxi, things like that. So when your brand is so strong, it will really have the power to resemble the whole product category. And also, I think one mistake that some of the brands might do is that they will create a lot of different line items that would dilute the brand and hurt the brand. In a way, for example, if let's say Milo today created an instant noodle.
Okay.
What the hell?
Okay,
right? So if I were to sell Milo instant noodle and I sell you a Maggi instant noodle, which one would you buy?
Maggi lah.
No, of course
No
Maggi,
brainer.
right? Because Milo, you think of the instant noodle will taste a little bit chocolatey, right?
No, you just don't associate Milo with
instant noodle.
Yeah, but I mean like Nestle, then it's a different story altogether. But Milo,
yeah,
okay.
A Milo instant noodle it would taste a little bit chocolatey, right? So the thing so strong about positioning is that you wouldn't want to dilute your brand by introducing line items that isn't associated with your brand.
Okay, I think before we end, there's a bit of time left. What advice would you give to, let's say, small businesses or marketers, let's say in our SME space, when it comes to performance marketing, or what is one like major mistakes that these people make that they probably should avoid?
I think a lot of times businesses try to achieve rapid growth through performance marketing. And yes, to be honest, if you want rapid growth, this is a tool, but it isn't really a magic pill. So what you want to do is really get your positioning right, get the fundamentals right first. Then after that, use performance marketing to scale it up and reach more people. Because at the end of the day, performance marketing is really just reaching your target audience. It's a tool, but you have to fix the fundamentals before doing that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. All right. Thanks, everyone. So if you have any questions regarding marketing, you can just put it in the comments down below. Links to, Braden will be in the description. So yeah, check it out. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked it. And we'll see you in the next
Cheers.
podcast.